Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. Today we got another episode on the 66 Mustang budget drag car build. So follow me on through the intro and I'll be back. So guys, from our last video, I did not give a budget update after we sprayed high build primer. Now, I didn't compensate for this primer. I compensated for the primer that I usually spray. So the previous video before that, we left off at $387.15 and about 9 days of labor at 8 hours a day. So that's pretty good little amount. But factoring in the cost, I picked up some more supplies in the background for today's video, and our high build primer puts the budget total at $523.13 so far. And if you want to bust out the labor thing, so roughly we're about $7,200 in shop rate labor time at this point. But keep in mind, you may not have that much time in your project. This thing was extremely rough, which if you go back to the start of the series, you can see that in its full glory. So, kind of a pre-warning, this video is going to be kind of more the same of the last one, except this time, this is the last. This is our last chance. Whatever lives in this primer at this point will live in the car until either A, the paint falls off of it, or B, we wreck it, or C, some act of nature does something to it to destroy the paint. So let me flip it around and we'll talk about a few things we gotta fix. So we got Lily in here visiting. She is currently inhabiting the center of the hood. Daisy is outside in her outside cat castle, but Lily's trying to steal her spotlight, I think. But I went ahead, I mocked up. You always want to mock up your trim, guys. Especially with something like this fiberglass front end that flips forward. We're going to have to do just a little bit of trimming right here. I marked it to clear this windshield trim right there. I had a little hairline crack in the gel coat right there I did not see. Some pinholes that we did not see. This is going to be our last chance to fix this stuff. Just a couple little pinholes in the filler that might block out. We'll have to get to that point. Got one right there. You know, a couple little pinholey things here. Just one. And got a little bitty pinhole right there. And got one little bitty pinhole right here. And up here at this corner, it looks like we might have a little something here. I don't know if that's a hole or what, but I'm going to swipe at it a little bit and just try to take care of it. Likewise back here, I got a couple of little weird holes right here on the side, and there's a little smuts around that stud I gotta get off. But the rest of the car, I think it will block out fine from this point, and it's not gonna be an issue. And I've got two little bitty pinholes. I know you can't see them on camera right here. But I think the rest of it will block out fine for our color coat that's gonna come next. So, in interest of you guys actually seeing paint in this video, I'm going to do a lot of time-lapse stuff in this video as far as fixing this little stuff. We have covered it in these videos so far. It's going to be the same process even over the high build primer. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to scuff the primer, I'm going to mix up some filler that's very, very thin with some fiberglass resin, put in these pinholes. That little crack in the gel coat, I'll kind of V it out. I'll do the same thing back there. The little holes around the edges, I'm going to just mix up a little filler and put in with some fiberglass resin. Don't think it's going to cause an issue. And the rest of it should block out. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get to spraying some paint in this video. But we still got a long way to go. It don't seem like it. The car does look pretty decent. This is some of these places I'm personally not going to let slide. Anything else, sir, is going to slide. But I can't have any major defects because I did change up our paint scheme just a touch. And I'll talk about that later in this video. But it's time to remind you to check out KentuckyMustang.com. There will be a link down there in the description below, along with a new discount code that they sent us. The other ones in the old videos are expired. They will be going away in a day or two. So make sure you use that new code if you need any parts. Kentucky Mustang was also nice enough to step up, and that's going to be a surprise for our next video after this car's painted. So let's get busy, guys. So the good thing about using this buff colored primer, a light colored primer, guys, you usually want to match primer color to what you're going to put on top of it. But a buff colored primer like this, these pinholes and stuff are going to stand out like a sore thumb. So that's what I wanted. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take some 120 grit and I'm going to abrade this primer. Okay, I'm not going to sand all of it off. I'm just going to make sure this primer is good and rough where we're going to have to put our filler. So I'm just going to work, like I said, in small areas at a time. We had a couple up here. We got one right here. We got one right here that's obvious. We got a little place right here that's obvious. So, like I said, now's the time to really look these panels over hard and find any bad places that you might have. So I'm just going to mix up small amounts of filler and reduce it out very thin so I can spread it very, very smooth, and I'm going to put it in these areas. And then I'm going to come back and spot prime these areas with some U-Paul aerosol high build. And that, when we get to the point of blocking the car, we'll just block these areas with the car itself. And since some of these pinholes have been an ongoing thing here, I'm just going to take a small drill bit, and I'm not going to drill the hole, but I am going to open these pinholes up just a touch. That way they're I don't have to worry about them just popping right back up as we sand. So just a little helpful trick. I've done that in the background on some of the other videos, but it just gives you a little more area to get that filler down there and make sure there's no air gaps or anything underneath it. And places like that cracking the gel coat, I'm just going to take a triangle file right here and I'm just going to get in this groove. And I'm just going to dig it out a little bit until I know I'm going to have a good little area of contact down in this. This is only through gel coat. I can see the edge of it, so I just want to V that gel coat out, and then we'll just put a little bit in that. So got all our filler in our places that we need to block down. This stuff, guys, with that fiberglass resin in to make it thin where it flows down that stuff, it takes it quite a while to set up. So I'm going to let it fully harden before I even touch this stuff. So now is a good opportunity. You need to go and look your car over every square inch and make sure that you do not have any large areas at this time that you need to address, because like I said, this is the last time I'm spraying primer on this car, period. It's not going to matter. Like I said, it's going to be a race car. It don't have to be 100% perfect, but I do want a nice car. So I'm going back over and making sure there's nothing absolutely sticks out to the eyeball right now. The car is a light color. You can see pinholes. You can see defects. So you need to address it. So I'm gonna let this filler cure on out for a little while, guys. I get it blocked down, I'll come back. Well, our filler has cured out and I have blocked it down. One thing I wanted to say, guys, when you block, you go in here and fixing stuff like this, when you block this down, because I don't want to take much thickness away from this high build. And like I said, I got some at U-Paul high build. We're going to spray on these areas. I just worked it down until I started seeing very transparencies through the primer or through the filler. And then I stopped. I didn't want to sand all this high build off. I want what we put on there to be able to be worked down and gone. So, but I also wanted to fill any kind of sanding scratches that we may have in these little filler spots. So as you can see, like I said, just worked it down. This is just some staining into the primer around, but got all those issues fixed, you know, the little ones. And then I forgot about the ones on the wheel well. There was a few here. There was some more along that body line there. And down there at the bottom of that door where we fixed it, I had a couple of little small ledges that I couldn't see before. I just went there and swiped those. So now I'm going to take some of this U-Paul high build aerosol primer. I'm going to hit those places, let them cure out. It says let this stuff sit, it dries in about an hour. So I've never used it before, but apparently it's really good stuff for this. So you want to shake it good. In about an hour, it's sandable. So I'm just going to keep working along, hit some of these other spots. I'm going to keep looking the car over as I go. And then hopefully here in a little while, we'll be at the point where we can go back to block sand this. I'm going to do a little different process this next time than what we did in the previous video, because this is 100% the last time. So I'll be back. Well, 4 hours later and I am still messing with pinholes in this front end. I told you guys, fiberglass is not fun. Cheap fiberglass is really not fun. If you go back to our front end repair video, you'll understand. So even our last video, we fixed pinholes in this front end. I'm still fixing pinholes in this front end. They just keep on giving. Like I said, the more you sand on it, the more you touch it, the more there is. So I've got my last round of filler on it. I'll flip around, I'll kind of show you where I'm at. I got the front end flipped open. I trimmed the top of it up there, you know, all the way up here. You know, kind of fun. But I trimmed those edges, got them smoothed up where they look good. I got most of the other spots where they look good. I really need to get to the point before the end of the day, which there's about 2 hours left working times. I need to at least get this thing in a guide coat. And then we can come in here tomorrow, block this thing out, and cross our fingers and hope nothing bad shows up. So let me flip it around. And like I said, you can see the ones we went in here and fixed all the way down through here and all the way across and all the way up here. And you know, I'm telling you guys, it's like these things just magically open up. And like I said, I went up here and trimmed these off smoothly, so it would clear our windshield trim once we get it, you know, on the car. But got one there, got one there, one. Got them up here, you know, got lots of them. And like I told you before, when you mix that fiberglass resin in a polyester filler, like I have been doing to thin this out where it go down in these pinholes, it takes this stuff forever to dry. Like at least an hour to where you can sand it. So I put this in there about 20 minutes ago before I started. I flipped this front end up and started, you know, trimming the edges up there, which I still got to let it down and see how it looks. I'm gonna have to mark the windshield trim back up. So we get to that point, I'll bring y'all back. So wish me luck and hope for no more pinholes, because yeah, pinholes, gift keeps on giving. All right, so I got the windshield trim back out, and you got to remember this will sit a little bit more proud than this once the glass and rubber's in there. What I done, I just went in here and set it down till it touched the studs all the way across. Wanted to make sure I had a gap here, or at least the smoothest looking gap I could get as far as shape. Like I said many times, this thing is pretty poor quality, so the fitment's going to be pretty poor around some of the areas. So I got plenty of clearance now that this can come up and clear that. So now I get to take all the fasteners back out of it again. Take the windshield trim off. I'm going to blow the car off, and we'll get this thing guide coated. So I've been trying to keep time lapse out of this for now, because we're going to have plenty of it when we get to the painting portion. So let's keep moving forward, guys, and I'll be back here in just a moment. And when you're at the block sand stage before you paint, guys, you do not want one light spot in this anywhere. You want your guide coat to cover everything so you can see any defect or pinhole when you block this out this last time. So that said, I'm going to let this guide coat dry overnight because I use cheap spray paint. Works just fine, done it for years. You're going to sand 999% of it back off. So it's not going to affect whatever you spray over it. So you just want to make sure that you have everything that matters. Now, I didn't guide coat the window edges. You know, I didn't guide coat around the frames up there. I didn't guide coat the door jambs. But everything that you're going to see, I guide coat. You know, I didn't guide coat in here where your cord extensions are. Obviously, you know, that's ugly and we're not going to be able to block that out. But you want every single inch of exterior metal or fiberglass, as in this case, that you want to see. And if sharp eye knows I guide coated over these, I will throw them in some thinner and let that kill that off tomorrow while we're block sanding. So this is where I'm going to leave it off, guys. And I'll be back in the morning. So see you then. Well, it's next morning. It's time to get started. So let me flip around. Daisy wants to say hi. Well, Daisy's hanging out on her floor waiting to go out to her outside cat castle. She'd like to remind you about our merchandise store and that we have a code, Daisy, and it'll be down there on my page or in the description below where you can save 10% off anything in our merchandise store. So apparently Summit wouldn't ship paint to my location, but as you see, we got paint at my location. Turns out it was just a primer for whatever reason. So this is paint what we're going to paint the 66 with. So I got a quart of bright blue metallic, got a gallon of white, and of course some high temp reducer and some high temp activator. This will be very important when spraying a urethane based paint. So that's what colors we're going to paint. I know I talked about painting it a bass boat metallic yellow, and I've talked about a few other things. Unfortunately, this is what the budget allows. So that's what we got to work with. So I still got to come up with some strap ideas for the blue, but the car is going to be white. So that over there, that's Summit paint right there. I did get a roll of 220 also. Come to $296.27 after tax, which brings our grand budget total up so far to $819.40. So enough talking about stuff. Let's see, let's make sure that this thing's going to block out and be ready to paint. So for this round of wet sanding, guys, before paint, I'm going to use some 400. I am going to break out the long block for this one, for these long flat surfaces. And I am going to block this side altogether, because before, when I use these before the high build, these, you can make a panel straight with a small block or a block like this. Okay, don't get me wrong. But if you want to make sure there is absolutely no ripples in there, you need to switch to a long, dense block. And this block right here is a lot denser than this block right here, or this one. This will be good for these wide areas that are somewhat flat. We will work the doors, the quarters, roof trunk, and the hood, you know, all our flat areas with that. And then I will come in here when I'm almost done, and I'll use my smaller block to blend these curved areas or to get in areas that are small like this. So let's get started. So like before, guys, I'm just going to do it in here in the shop with a bucket. When we get done, I'll push it outside because I'll have to wash the shop out anyway in order to get it clean enough to paint. So like I told you, we're going to start off with our long block. I'm going to wet the surface, and we're just going to work in an X pattern as we go. Alright, and then we're going to alternate between straight and the X pattern until we get to a point where all the guide code is gone. And you get up here in the roll with the long block, you can switch directions. You get to a body line, you can switch directions. But what the guide code is going to show you, and the reason why the guide code is just so heavy, now keep in mind I just barely hit this. There's a ton of sanding to do. But that guide code, it's going to show you any highs or lows in this panel, and you can see where the guide code is and where the guide code's not. And you can also see that some of these areas are about the same size as some of these smaller blocks. So that's why we're going to use the longer block in this stage. So what you're going to end up with is something like this. And this you see right here is the gel code underneath the high build. I'm not real worried about this front end being arrow straight, because it will never be arrow straight because of the surface that is under here. But you want to work until you don't see any guide code. I've still got a little bit here I'm going to have to work out. I can feel it. I can feel a roughness right here. But I can also see my materials getting thin around it. So you may have to switch to a smaller block and work this area over. Like I said, long block's great for making sure your large flat panels are straight. But you can also work these with smaller blocks. And sometimes when you got a roughness right here, the ultimate answer would have been to go ahead and block sand this car again, re-high build it, come back in, repeat this process, you know, a third time, which would be the second time for his front end, since this first coat of high build it's ever had. However, in this case, it's going to be a race car. We're painting it white. You don't have to be as picky on things. We just don't need the roughness in here. And what that means, we got a low spot. A very slight low. It's not much. We got a very slight low in this area. So you want to, as you work these sections, guys, you want to examine your panel. You want to watch what's going on and pay attention to your surface. And if your initial surface is rough, guys, meaning that you've got runs and stuff in the primer, or you know, it's just not going as fast as you want it to, you can switch to a coarser grit paper to initially break the surface of your primer. And I'm going to show you right here where you're going to want to stop. And we got a body line right here, so I'm working up to the body line in about the best X pattern that I can. So, thing is, working this as a small panel, you want to try to keep a blend. So, on something like this, if I switch to a coarser paper just to break the surface, and I'm not talking about switching to a 120 or an 80 grit, I'm talking about maybe from a 400 to a 320 or a 220, I will stop about at this point. I can see the surface very well. The surface is holding water, and then I'll switch back to the finer paper and work this down until we get about like this surface right here. So just a little tip that'll kind of help save a little time, because let's face it guys, the stuff's hard until you break the surface, and it's a little softer underneath. So if you break it with a little coarser paper, you'll be fine. If you were going to spray anything other than a single stage or a urethane based base coat clear coat, you would not want to be doing this with 400 anyway. You would probably initially break with 400 and then go to an 800. So guys, I'm going to get to working. I'm going to put you on time lapse for a little while. If I come to something that I feel like I need to explain in this finished stage of block sanding this car out, I will pop back in and we'll talk about it. I'm sure there will be a few times of that in some of these curved areas and stuff, because we're going to do them a little bit different than what we've done previously. So I've covered a lot of this stuff in a lot of these videos, so if you feel like I didn't cover something that you need to see, make sure you check out the playlist that this video's in. There's a 65 Mustang over here. There's a playlist with tons of body work on it too that covers a bunch of these weird curves, how to address them, and things like that also. So let me get busy guys and get to sanding. That last segment, I switched to a paint stick on both planes. I just want to show you guys, you can get a straight panel right there, even if you don't have a set of blocks. You can use a paint stick. Make sure it's a thick one. Pick the straightest ones you can. You come to the size you need. So you need a small block or a long block, you can use that. That's very old school. That's how I was taught to do it. I went here a while back and bought some nice blocks a few years back. But you can get great results with just a plain paint stick and a piece of sandpaper. So don't think it's going to be expensive and complicated. So guys, I just thought I would show you. That was a good visual representation. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can literally do this what you got. If you don't even have paint sticks, you could use your hand guys. Just don't bear down on it. It's not going to be the most arrow straight thing in the world if you've done it with your hand, but would it accomplish the same goal in the end? Yes. It just won't be straight, if that makes sense. So you just want to kind of work your entire surface. And if you watch that last time lapse, I left a spot up here at the front. That's because that fender has a weird, because it's fiberglass, it has a kind of a weird complex curve, kind of like the factory metal fenders do, but a little more exaggerated. So I went in there, blocked that area separate, and then I come back with my paint stick and my piece of paper and blended that area into the rest of it, just like back here at the back. I spent a little bit of time on a couple of little spots back there at the very tip edge that aren't really going to matter, but I want them smooth because even at this point, if we have small defects, guys, if they're smooth, they won't stick out to the eye, if that makes sense. So I'm going to keep sanding along, and like I said, I'll be back when there's another helpful tip. So I got the fan running. I don't know if you can hear it in the background or not, but this is kind of one of those areas where a block just don't quite fit in. You can surely work some areas, but we have tight rounded transitions here. We have up and down transitions here, and roll transitions this way, along with roll in and up transitions here, along with, you know, in these areas. It's just really kind of odd shapes, and it being this fiberglass front end, it don't really help. It's kind of slab sided right here all the way down to the point. You can kind of see the line all the way down that a block gets you. So at this point, I'm just going to take this in here and sand this by hand. I'm going to vary between just using one finger if it fits the contour, or the side of my hand in here like this. And you know, you get up in like these areas, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to like sand the flats and then sand the flats. So some places you just can't use a block, and you may have to go in there with your hand. You just want to try to use gentle, even pressure to avoid digging any kind of grooves in anything. Well, this is what, about 3 hours of time. Well, actually probably more than that, probably about 4 at this point. I've got the front blocked out. It looks pretty good. That's some of the other high build we had sprayed. With it wet, we got a nice straight reflection across everything. It's not 100% perfect, but it's good enough. So I really focused on those areas where we've made repairs. I blocked it as flat and as straight as we could while blending in all our roll transitions that we have on these top front ends. Really a bunch of time, guys. And as you can see how much primer I actually sanded off is, that is the gel coat underneath it. So you can see the braces that they molded in on the bottom show what they're top, or at least those lines. I think this front end is going to be about as straight as it's ever going to get. And sometimes, guys, you best just ain't never good enough on some stuff. Or you're dealing with a substrate like this front end. It's so far out there that all you can hope for is good enough. So I feel good that I've got all the pinholes, I've got all the spider cracks and everything addressed at this point, because blocking it out, that stuff comes readily apparent, especially with as much guide coat as we put on this. You should be able to see 100% of everything as you sand. So you either need to try to work all of it out, kind of like what showed you them foam braces on the bottom of this hood where they got them molded in on the bottom side, how that affects the top of the hood. This thing probably could have had about 4 or 5 more coats of high build primer and probably would have blocked out beautiful. But the more material you get on something, the more of a chance you got later for it to fall off. So in an effort to try to kind of balance things here, and this being a race car, we're just going to get to the point where stuff's good enough. And I've said that a bunch through this whole little mini series of doing the paint and body work on this car. I didn't want to spend a ton of time in it, but it's turned into a ton of time to make this car turn into somewhat halfway decent. So I'm gonna get this front end flipped up. I'm gonna block the cowl and start on the back half of the car. My main goal today was to kind of get the car block sanded and get it washed off. That way I could come in here in the morning and spray our first color. I don't know if that's gonna happen. This might turn into another 4 or 5 day weekend, so to say. For those that don't know, I pretty much do this 7 days a week, guys. I don't take any time off. You know, I work until I'm done. That is about the only way you can get these projects done. You got to focus on it and just keep working until you get the point you want to be at. Well, about 9 hours in on the same day, I've got half the roof the trunk, the rear filler is quarter, and the taillight panel done. I've still got to do the lower valance, sand the area in between here. The other half of the roof, that cell panel, this quarter, and that door. I need some of that magic where this thing's just magically done. You know, like something like nothing changed. Yep, I knew it. Well, back to work, guys. Well, another day, another dollar. Oh, wait, yep, no. Yeah, my stuff. No money here. So, I got last night to a point where I'm down to half the roof, the passenger door, and passenger quarter. And then I've got to sand the jambs, the trunk jam. I got to sand the cowl on the firewall down here. And we can get this thing cleaned up and dry it out. And hopefully we can get some color on it at that point. So let me get busy and I'll be back here in a few. Well, time for some of that video magic. So just like this. So I got the car taped up. What I'm taping up, got the rear jacked up so I can spray the inner lips. Got the front end flipped forward so I can spray around the edges of everything. I've got our extensions ready to go. And like I said, get this thing washed off, dried out, and we are ready to start spraying some color. And I think to up the ante a little bit, since a lot of people on the, little paint sprayer video seem to doubt things, right? I think we're gonna bust it out and paint the same fit. I think it'll do just fine. Plus, won't have to worry about no water and air lines. So our paint mix is 4 part paint, 1 part reducer, 1 part hardener. So it's very important that you try to generally follow these instructions. If paint's not thin enough for you, you might have to reduce it some more. If it's too thin, you might have to take a little reducer out of it. But you cannot take away your hardener. So I'm going to spray the jams first, and I'm actually going to use a fast activator on the jams because I want these things to set up pretty fast so I can get these doors back shut, the trunk back shut, so we can get the spraying out of body. But when I go to the out of body, I'm going to mix it up and go to a slow activator and a slow reducer. And what that's going to do is allow the paint to actually flow out. Alright, so what we got? Earlier in the video, we got this Summit acrylic urethane. This is a single stage, bright white. So this will be quite a bit brighter of white than the 65. It should cover a lot better. So what we got here, I'm just going to take for our jams, just going to mix up, not a whole lot here, but I just want to get enough where I can get a coat or two on them jams, just enough to turn them white. So, like I said, I've got, let me put this up. I grabbed the wrong one. I've got several different things, a Summit reducer here, so I'm going to use some mid-temp right here, reducer. Put it up to the line there. You want to make sure you mix this stuff up well. before you put it in your gun. Whether it be an air gun or an electric gun or whatever have you. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm just going to use some fast activator and some medium reducer. And the fast stuff is for low temp, which is below 70 degrees. And I can very well assure you it is not below 70 degrees. But what this will do, will let it set up faster. So basically what I'm looking for is what I spray in the jams to tack up kind of quickly. And by tacking up quickly means I'll be able to shut the doors, the trunk, and the hood, or the front end in this case, and allow me to, you know, be able to spray the car today instead of just coming in here and jamming it out and, you know, coming back tomorrow and trying to sand around some edges and or doing a bunch of taping. So you just want to mix this stuff up real well, and definitely with any kind of high solvent paint like this, obviously you want to use a respirator. So since everybody kind of doubted this little feller, I think this is what I'm going to use. Mostly because that I don't like people kind of crapping on things they've never tried. And I just want to kind of prove a point that we should be able to get a decent result, and so should you guys, without a compressor. So, like this thing said before, 10 to 20 seconds to empty the funnel. So that's about 12 seconds right there to empty the funnel. So I think we're very well inside our range there. Let's get spraying some paint. Well, got the jam sprayed across the hood edge, the fender lips on the front. And if anybody's curious what the temp is, yeah, it's pretty warm in here. So, like I said, I just want to get some color in here and some color in here. That way I can shut this trunk, I can shut these doors. I'm not really worried about overspray on them. And yes, you can see there's some paint dripped in the floor. It hit that edge where we cut that door. It started making little droplets down. Not a huge deal in this case. So, the fun thing is this stuff is it's been about 10 minutes, it's already dry to the touch. That's why I put the fast activator in, because I'm not real worried about the jams laying out and looking nice. I just need them white, if that makes sense. And I need to be able to get this front end back down, the door shut, and we can start spraying some more paint. I really hate for it to be this hot, but I don't have no choice. It's supposed to be springtime in Tennessee. We don't have spring no more. We have winter, and then we have summer, and then we have rain, lots of rain. So let me get this thing shut up and start spraying outside of it. So I mixed up another batch, 411, with the slow reducer and the slow activator. So what that should do is give us a enhanced flow out. So my first coat is going to be pretty much a tack coat, guys. I'm just going to get some white paint on the whole car, We'll let it dry about 15 to 20 minutes. We're gonna come back in here. We're gonna put a wetter coat on the car. We'll let that sit 15 to 20 minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll put a wet coat on the car. And that should give us a nice finish out of a single stage. So let me put you on the big stand, get respirated up. Let's get busy. Well, second coat's on. Progressively, as you get more coats of single stage on, you're going to need to let it cure a lot longer. And yes, there is a little orange peel in it, but keep in mind it's single stage and it's still wet, so it's going to have to kind of flow out and do its thing. But it's looking pretty decent. And I usually try to shoot for 3 coats on a single stage like this. After I spray my third coat, I will wait about 20 minutes and I'll come in here and take some extremely reduced down reducer with some white in it. And I will kind of lay a wet coat on. And what that'll do is help this flow out. So I'm gonna let this sit here a little while longer. I'm gonna go over here and pet Daisy for a few minutes. And we're gonna quit walking around the car, because the more you walk around something like this, the more chances you got of stirring up stuff. And as you can hear, the floor is extremely sticky. So I'll be back here in a little while. So I opened the door to push the 65 in, and I turned around, and in the middle of my hood was this red wasp that decided to fly in at the same time. And as you can see, he has ceased to exist. That is because Mr. Red Wasp decided to get right in the middle of this hood and stick himself and start dancing around and making big ugly. That said, if I already wasn't happy with it, I'm really not happy with it now that I got bug dancing stuff around. It looks alright. Now, like I told you in the review video for electric sprayer, you will have to get comfortable with color sanding and buffing something. It does leave a little bit of a texture. Not much, guys. Not much. But it does put the material down, which means it's very much more prone to runs and sags and things along that nature. So I'm going to finish this video up tomorrow, because I can't really touch the car. I can't move around it, so to say. I literally opened the door for 30 seconds to push 65 in, and I had a wasp over here dancing a jig in the hood. So I'm gonna shut the shop up. I'm gonna go home, and when I get back tomorrow, we'll talk about a few more things. This next day, and the car's dried out enough, we can actually touch it. So I'm gonna take you guys off the stand. We'll walk around it. We'll talk about a few things about using that electric paint gun to paint a vehicle like this, and what you're gonna have to do in the following steps to get a decent, nice result. So basically what we have here is a 20-footer. Now it looks all right. Don't get me wrong. You see a little bit of a shine. It's got a little bit of an orange peel, and we got a little wave in this fiberglass hood. But as you can see, we got some orange peel in the surface, and where Mr. Wasp danced around, we got some rough, ugly stuff there. But you know, for an electric paint gun, it turned out pretty good. There's going to obviously have to be some wet sanding done here. There was a couple places where we got a couple of sags in it, a couple runs. They're going to have to be addressed. But generally, you know, guys, it turned out pretty decent for what we used. You know what I mean? This isn't meant for a professional body shop. It's not meant for perfection. We literally took something you used to spray house paint and paint a car with it. So obviously, there's going to be some color setting and buffing needed. And I've already started that process over there this morning. You can see my bucket back there, and that quarter panel back there is dull. But where it really did kind of shine, guys, were only small parts. Like our quarter extensions. They get a little bit orange peel, but they generally turned out nice. You know, same with our fender extensions, you know. They got a little bit, but they look pretty good. So where you go from here is what is important. Paint gun, electric paint gun. You know, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here. We're going to paint some graphics and stuff on this car. So as you can see, the orange peely texture, okay, where I sanded it, you can see it. What you need to do, especially with a single stage paint like this is a urethane, an acrylic urethane single stage. If you spray Rust-Oleum without hardener, you spray tractor paint without hardener, you're not going to be able to do this at this point. The reason why I went with the urethane is because it has UV inhibitors where Rust-Oleum and tractor paint do not, which means they fade fast. Meaning that you're going to have to wax the car about every week to keep it the deep color and shine. So from this point, we're going to be painting some stripes or some kind of graphics on this car at this point. I've not 100% honed it out what I'm doing. I'm going to sand the car down with 800. I'm going to block it back down. Try to use some of the white paint to straighten up this fiberglass hood a little bit better. But I'm going to block the car out with 800. If you were going to buff it, say you wanted a single color, you're going 800 it, you're going 1000 grit it, 1500 and 2000. And at those points, you're going to have to figure out a point to stop at each grit, because on paint, you're going to be working out the previous grit size as you go forward. So you need to make sure you have enough material to do so. What I'm going to do, I'm going to 800 the car. I'm going to leave it at 800 grit. I'm going to lay out and paint our stripes. And more than likely, I'm going to spray a urethane clear coat over the top of it from there. And I will use my air paint gun to spray the clear. Because honestly, I'm tired of sanding at this point, guys. I've done this because we had some haters on the review video on that electric paint gun saying it would fail. I wanted to paint a whole car with it, just to prove that point. So we got a car painted with it. Is it going to be more work? Yes, it is. I should have just used my air paint gun. But for those of you that don't have that option, I think this very well proved the point that you could do it. I will say this, get you some junk panels. Practice, guys, practice with this electric paint gun. It does take quite a bit of thinner to clean it. So I'm going to get the sand on this car, guys, and I'm going to come back. There's a couple of larger runs that we're going to have to address, and I'll show you how to remove the runs in the paint, so to say, where you can buff this out and have a nice result, and not end up having wavy panels just going in there sanding the one spot. So let me get busy, and I'll be back here in a few. So guys, sometimes, like I said, these videos ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's one of those cases. So the good thing is, a lot of this, I'm just flat blocking. It slicks up decent, you know. It would buff out decent at that point. So I'll flip it around. I'm going to show you how to fix some of these spots and what I'm going to do personally going from here. Alright guys, so I have guide coded these spots to make them a little easier for you guys to see. We have a little run in this area. So I'm just going to take a new flat edge razor blade right here, and I'm just going to kind of scrape it across our guide coat. And as you can see these areas. So generally what I'll do, I'll take something like this. This is a piece of paint stick. I'll kind of hit these areas, just kind of have an idea of what we got going on. As you can see, they're pretty ugly. If you use a somewhat soft block or semi-rigid block like this, it's going to skim over the tops of these places. You can use something like this little palm center to come in a little polishing kit. It's a lot more rigid, and you're just going to come in here in that X pattern, and we're just going to work on these spots a little bit while keeping the surface wet. And as soon as I see that guide coat disappear, that's where I'm going to stop, guys. And then you're going to get up here on this other place, and we're just going to work it. Like this place, it's just a real ugly place. Maybe I hit my shirt up against it or something right here. You can't do this with base coat, but since this is a single stage urethane, we can go in here and we can work this down. At this point, it's starting to get real thin. I'm going to kind of come in here and just start working this whole area. Being mindful of our edges over here, I don't want to get over here and just start sanding on these edges. But I do want to include them in our process. Same with this one down here. I'm just kind of gliding, like I'm taking any kind of pressure away when we get down here. And as you can see, I'm going to alternate. We're going to go straight, and then we're going to X across this spot. Paying attention to what our surface is doing the whole time. You need to pay attention to what's going on. If you do not, you're going to have issues. So, and it's also sometimes helpful to have a clean towel. You can put water up here, and sometimes you can just sit up here on this edge while you work this one spot. I'm sure a lot of people will jump on here and say, well, you're making a wave right here. That we are, guys. We are making a wave right here. But what we do from this point, because you know that your run or any kind of place in that paint, like I just showed you, is going to be a high spot. We got rid of that high spot. We stopped once we got there. And at this point, for the rest of our panel that is smooth, I'm going to go in here in a straight line motion, kind of alternating a little bit like I did over there. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to work this panel until it's all the same matte finish. And I'll keep a dry towel off to the side. I've got it sitting out there in the sun right now. But once this is an even matte finish, if you were going to buff this, you can go to your 1000 grit next, make 3 or 4 good swipes, 5 swipes, 6 swipes, move to your 1500. On a single stage, your 1500 will be buffable with a wool pad, so you could technically stop at 1500. Once you sand it good with that 1500, you'll be able to come in here, you'll be able to buff this panel out, and you won't have those runs or defects. So when you get to this point, guys, you want to see a matte finish. You do not want to see any shiny in your surface. I've got a few examples of several different paint defects on this car, so I'll just pop back in and we'll work them out in real time. But literally that 5 minutes of that clip, we got rid of those three, there's technically three there, those two bad defects. One where I either got my shirt bumped up against it and it left a super rough texture, or that little run. If you're going to use a razor blade like this, it needs to stay vertical. Put your piece of tape over these edges, and that piece of tape will act as a spacer to kind of space this up. I'll show it to you on the next place we get to. I've done this quite a bit with the razor blades, so I know what to watch for to make sure these edges don't dig in. But just in case you guys don't, when we get to that point, I'll show you. So, razor blade. Use some painter's tape. It ain't gotta be pretty. Take it. Roll it over the edge. Like that. Roll it over the edge like that. Pinch this tight. Tear that off. Still got enough, right? Take that tape. Pinch it over. Make sure it's tight. Right there, the tape acts as a spacer on that blade. And we'll let you get in there and scrape those runs down. Like I said, this tape is going to act as a buffer. It's going to act as a spacer. Can you still dig in with this if you push hard? Yes. But you can see that tape also acts as a spacer and helps us glide over the surface so that you can cut the run off and the guide coat. But you need to watch these edges, guys. They will eventually wear through, and you're going to need to put some more tape on it. So a lot of these places on this car aren't that bad. However, there's some places like this that are pretty ugly. We could have got mad at it, but it's not going to do no good. We're going to have to fix it anyway. So I'll generally start out doing this, and that'll get us to a point where it sands a lot easier. But just like before, I really like this little palm sander right here because it gives me some nice control. But the guide coat, like I said, I'm pretty much putting it on there for you guys just to be able to see what's going on. And you can vary pressure with this. So you start hearing your paper stick like that, your surface isn't wet enough. So, like I said, just like the other places, we're just going to go in here and we're just going to work these spots until we get down close to the edge of that guide coat, meaning that it's just barely there. And we're going to move back and work the whole panel. So we're pretty good here. We still got a pretty good little ridge there. And you don't want to come in here and just do this. If you come in here and just, I'm just going to work this edge. You can't do that, guys. You need to work the whole thing. You can come in here, like I said, and work these bad places like this. But when you go to blocks in the rest of your panel, as you go, you need to start coming out here and start working around this area a little bit as you're starting to get close. And what I like to call it kind of blending it in. Because guys, the eye picks up large transitions as waves. And right here, I just swap back to my paint stick. Your eye picks up large waves. So body work is always kind of a mind trick, so to say. They can sell you big fancy flexible blocks and hard blocks and all this other jazz, but it's more about mastering the trick of making it appear straight. And I will say this, the nice tools do make this easier, but when you have to work what you got, sometimes you just find ways to make things work the way you want them to work. And in all aspects of the automotive world, that's pretty much what you do. 'Cause let's face it, everybody's not rich. I mean, there's a lot better paints out there than what I sprayed. And if anybody's wondering about the Summit paints, I'm about 990% sure they're made by Kirker, which is what old Bondo Billy sprays now. They're pretty decent paints, guys. It's cheap line stuff, but you know, with the auto paint world, you can't get what you pay for. So once I get that worked out, just like that right there, I'm going to switch to our softer block, and I'll work this whole top panel right here as one. Got a little more interesting little place right here on our body line. I'll be back here in a moment to show you how to fix that. And one of the most absolute treacherous places, guys, are going to be right on the bottom of a body line. These are the most at risk areas that you're going to run across. And the reason why I say at risk, one thing you got to keep in mind, the run's thick, but under that run is thin. Generally, a hill is combined with a valley. So what I'll do, I'll take the edge of this paint stick, guys, the very, very thin flat edge, and we'll come in here and I'll sand on our guide coat a little bit, and as you can see, it's a pretty ugly spot right here. Okay, what we want to keep in mind, we do not want to sand this edge right here at all. The reason why I'm using that thin edge, I can focus it a lot more precise on the areas I want to work, which are these runs. Now keep in mind, it's not that bad. Okay, it looks bad because of the guide coat, but we don't want these places. So your paper's going to wear out very quickly like this. But you just want to take that edge. I'm going to pull that edge down until I get where I can see a nice clean spot underneath it. Like in this area. So we're just going to keep rotating the edge. Right now, we're just going to work in this spot. And you can see I'm staying away from that edge right there. You see the guide coat still. Once I get it, we're starting to get a good amount, I can switch to the flat on it. And start working the area. Once again, I'm not going over that edge. I'm only merely going up to it. And the reason why it runs like this is because it's thick on that edge. But an edge is also the easiest way to break through. And that's why the edge of that paint stick and that sandpaper cuts this as fast as it does. So, if I feel like my flat's not working, I might kick this up at like a 45. And that gives us an even smaller, sharper surface to work with. Be able to work these spots out. And like I said, guys, when we get 90% of it out, we're getting pretty close to that right now. You're going to want to switch grits. I'm not going to, because like I said, I'm going to paint some stripes on this car. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to lay them out, but I'll probably at this point just end up going in here and clear coating the car with the stripes. So we got it down pretty good amount. Right there, I'm going to switch to our softer block. Right here. I'm still just going to use the edge of that block up to this edge. I'm not going to go over this edge until I get to the point where I don't see no more guide coat below it. And then when I do, I'm just going to lightly go to that edge. And sometimes, guys, it all may not come out. Or you may get to a point like this right here. You've seen that we had just worked through our defect, but we got some burn through right here. This is the high build primer. I can see it right here. So, if you get to that point, guys, this isn't going to buff out. You're going to buff through it. You're not going to have no choice. Either A, you get you some more paint, you blend these areas in, you repeat the sanding process lightly to blend it in, and then you can clear coat your car. That's one way to save the mass of it. Or like I'm doing, and I'm going to paint stripes, I just don't know exactly what my layout's going to be yet. Me, I'm going to kind of let the bad spots, or maybe some places that might go through, or places that don't clean up, kind of dictate where we're going from here. So guys, I think I've kind of explained the processes here enough where anybody can understand. So hopefully it helps you. So don't let it get you down if you burn through the paint. Like I said, I'm not necessarily worried about it. If I have to, I'll get some more white paint and we'll burn these places in. But I figured I would kind of let any places that might burn through be our guide to, you know, actually fixing, making our stripes. Right? It's kind of fun. It's like a game. You don't know what you're going to end up with, but we know what we're working for. So, like I said, you can get mad at it. It's not going to do no good. You're going to have to go back in there and fix it anyway. Or live with the ugly spots. That's it, guys. That's probably where I'm going to leave this video off. So, let me know what you think down there below. I'm sure there's going to be some haters on this video. Well, I told you so. It's that electric paint gun. Yeah. I get it, guys. It takes a lot to upset me. you know, and I really don't entertain ugly, so that's another thing. So I'm just gonna keep working along in the background. Our next video, guys, we're gonna put some stripes on this thing. And they're gonna be some 60s style stuff, so it's gonna be kind of cool, I think. So I just gotta let the car tell me what it wants and what it wants to be at this point. So I'm gonna get back to sanding. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel grow. It helps me bring you more videos like this. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys. And make sure you check out our friends over at Kentucky Mustang. There's a discount code down there in the description below. So until next video, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.